Gareth Robertson.
How you doing, Rich?
I'm doing all right. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story with the audience. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm there. I've been eagerly anticipating this, but we managed to navigate the time difference, and yeah, we're here. We're here.
Yes, yes. So for the audience as well, you are in the UK, so you're 5 hours ahead of me here in Detroit,
Yeah,
in the States. So we've managed to work it out.
yeah. I'm just about to wrap up for the day, so yeah.
Hopefully
I've
this will be a good end note for you.
I've managed to keep my diary pretty light, so I'm ready for this. I'm ready.
Good, good. Let me just give a brief introduction for the audience of who you are and what you do. Gareth Robertson, you're the founder and creative director of Design Pit, established in 2012. Your company evolved from a solo venture into a multifaceted creative agency specializing in branding, digital marketing, and content creation. And you've currently switched to Graphic Studio as the name of that. You are the author of Decade, Creative Journey in Business, which chronicled your entrepreneurial experiences, including business growth, challenges, and reinvention through economic uncertainty. You are an award-winning entrepreneur, winner of the Best Startup Business and Tamworth, Lichfield, and Sutton Coldfield Business Networking Awards, and later Best Creative Business. You're
Yeah,
an innovator in design and print. You launched Print Pit, an e-commerce print platform, expanding your creative business into online services. You're a charity advocate for Parkinson's UK, where you've raised over 15,000, is it pounds?
pounds. Yeah,
Pounds for Parkinson's research through multiple fundraising efforts, including the Three Peaks Challenge. And you're a resilient business leader, successfully restructured and relocated your business during the pandemic, adapting to the changing market while maintaining growth, which is now currently, as we stated, the graphic studio.
it is. You make it sound very grand.
That's the thing as creatives. We look at all of the things that we do and we don't put a whole lot of grandiose value on it because it just seems so natural for us a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is. I'm not sure what the phrase is, but we don't tend to build ourselves up too much. And like I get told off all the time. There's a business group that I go to, and I'll say things like, "Oh, I'm doing a little bit of work for this company," and there's a lady there that always says to me, "A little bit of work. You've been working on this for 3 weeks because you told me about it 3 weeks ago. It can't be a little bit of work." But I don't know what it is, but I do find a lot of my friends who are designers as well will do similar things. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we don't always give ourselves enough credit, and I think, and two, I look at it from the perspective of it plays into what I would perceive as your humility.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of that. I think as creatives, whatever discipline, you you put your heart and soul into things to create for your client, and you're very precious over the work you do.
Yeah, yeah,
And we give willingly, don't we?
yes.
And yeah, so I think yeah, humility. That sounds a very posh word for a Monday afternoon. Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay, good deal, good deal. So let's just start off right from the beginning, and I'll ask you my only scripted question, which is, where were you born, and what was life like as a kid for Gareth?
So I was born in a little place called Lichfield, which is a very small city in the Midlands in the UK. You've probably heard of Birmingham, which
Yes.
is the second city in the UK behind London. And Lichfield is about 40 minutes north of Birmingham. So
Okay.
that's where I was born. My parents, I'm the oldest of three brothers. My parents were both teachers, and my brothers, there's only 5 years between the three of my brothers, the three of us, sorry. And my mum basically stopped work when with three boys. It's quite a lot of work. My
Yeah.
mum stopped work, and my dad was basically the breadwinner for a number of years until we got a bit older, and then my mum started to phase back into work as we got older and it's a bit more self-sufficient. And yeah, life growing up in the UK, like I had a very happy childhood. My brothers and I were best friends growing up. We were quite close in age. They were best men at my wedding, which
Nice.
shows the sort of relationship we have.
Yeah.
And yeah, growing up was good. Spent a lot of time in North Wales because my mum is from Wales. My dad's actually half Scottish, so technically I'm a mongrel with half Welsh, quarter Scottish, quarter English.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of time spent in North Wales as a kid growing up. A lot of time playing football, rugby, basketball. Yeah, just a normal upbringing, I would say.
Okay.
I wasn't particularly gifted academically at school, but I got by. I think or excelled in education was in creative areas. So I took GCSE. I don't know what your equivalent would be in America, but I studied design and technology at school, and I went on to college and then to university to study graphic design as well. So all the way through, I've been very creative. I always found myself doodling, drawing cartoons of my mates, cartoons of my favourite footballers or rugby players, redesigning club badges for my favourite sport clubs, so on and so forth. I've always had that in me. And I'm also, a lot of people have said to me over the years, you're very good with people. Whilst I might not be particularly academic, I'm really
Yeah.
good in a room full of people. I'll talk to anyone.
Right.
Really great graphic designer I was with. Very talented guy. I won't name his name because he'll be dead embarrassed, but he's got multiple international design award wins. He's a talented boy,
Okay.
really good friend of me. But he is by nature quite a insular character. He's
Yeah.
quite shy.
Yeah.
Hates selling. I hate selling, but I'm
Yeah.
quite confident to go and talk to people. So I will literally march up to a room full of people and just get stuck in, shake hands, say hello, ask people what they're up to, what they're doing. And my mate he said, "Oh, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do it." He said,
Yeah.
"It's my worst night." So yeah, so those soft skills that I think I've got now as an adult were honed as a kid. With eldest of three brothers, you learn to communicate on with people. The family of five is a decent sized family,
Yeah.
lots of cousins. We're in touch with reasonably.
Yeah.
That's very normal.
Yeah. With your parents being teachers, what were their fields of study that they were teaching?
My my dad was actually a head teacher in a primary school,
Okay.
teaching children from reception, which would be your kindergarten,
Yeah.
all the way through to the age of about to the age of what year did he go through? He would go through to 11, I think.
Okay.
Was it 11? Might have been younger. He was an infant school teacher, so yeah, he would have probably stopped at about 7 or 8. Yeah, so from kindergarten through to the age of say 8 years old.
Gotcha.
He would be in charge of a school of that sort of size. He taught a lot. He was quite artistic. He paints now, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I do get a lot of the creative sort of side of things from him. But yeah, and then my mum was also like an infant school teacher as well. So she would teach anything from real small kids, reception age, kindergarten age, all the way through to about 11 years old.
Okay.
But because of that, they weren't like one specific sort of subject.
Got it.
They teach everything.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And with your two brothers that are younger than you, did you find yourself being their champion, their protector, going up through elementary
I
schools?
think as the older sibling, you naturally try and, as you're growing up, you certainly try and take that role on.
Yeah.
I was fortunate through school. I was quite an early developer. I was quite big when I was at school. I was very sporty. I used to play a lot of contact sports like rugby.
Yeah.
So I'm not shy in coming forward, shall we say.
Yeah.
Um, do enjoy, like with sport in particular, I do enjoy physical confrontation within sport.
Yeah.
If I can't smash someone, I don't see what's the point.
Right.
So I didn't get on too well with football because it was too easy to get fouled. Didn't I played it because it's readily accessible here in the UK, but when I found rugby, I really enjoyed that. And because I was a big lump, because I was quite sporty, as a jock, as you guys would probably say,
Yeah.
I was left alone. So I never experienced anything like bullying at all when I was
Yeah.
at school. A few scrapes, shall we say, part of growing up.
Yeah.
My middle brother did struggle. He was a little. Both of my brothers aren't as sporty as me. They're both talented in their own way, but my middle brother did struggle for a few years with. He was very academic, so he's a scientist, and he studied physics. He was very good with numbers, so he was good with his maths, and he did experience bullying throughout his time at school. Help him and support him as much as I could as an older brother with that. The younger brother was definitely one of the cool kids. Never
Okay.
really struggled with anything like that. He's not he wasn't like me in the respect of being sporty or physically intimidating in any way. I don't think like he's quite a small, slight guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you naturally take that role on, don't you? You know, and I think they were left alone because it was to large part because they don't want to mess with them too because they'll have you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's fascinating that you were athletic and into all those things. And I can relate to that because I played football, as you would call it, since I was 13, and I was a keeper the entire time.
Yeah,
Got moved out to midfield a few times, but not as much as I was able to excel in the goal. And I was same thing with basketball, fairly tall, so I always was able to excel in that. And I was always able to find ways where I could excel over other players just based on watching how they played. I would
yeah,
be able to pick out their weaknesses or their inabilities to do certain things. And I could figure out that, okay, I can excel based off of them not
mm,
being able to do as much.
yeah,
But I can relate to that athletic mindset and what it takes to be a part of a team and be a team player as well as being the individual position as well. I'm the exact opposite of you. I'll walk into a room and I'll stand over in the corner and, and just observe.
yeah, yeah.
So I find that fascinating that you have the ability to be able to do that because as a creative, many of us find that is not very easy.
No, I think you're definitely the norm with creatives.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
I do feel I tend to book the trend a little bit in that respect, to the point where, do you watch Shark Tank in the
yes,
US?
yes,
So that program came from Dragon's Den in the
right,
UK.
yes. Watch that.
So yeah, so Peter Jones, who's on as a guest on Shark Tank now and again, he's one of the mainstays of Dragon's Den.
Okay,
So in 2015-16 sort of time, there was a guy who was a panelist on Dragon's Den called Nick Jenkins. And have you ever heard of a brand called Moonpig? I don't know if you'd have heard of it over there.
no, I have not.
So basically, it's an online platform where you can go on and buy personalized gift cards.
Okay,
So Nick Jenkins, this guy, he built this business from scratch. So he established it, founded it, built it up, grew it, and when he sold it for 120 million pounds.
oh
So
wow,
serious money, and now it's worth more. Now it's massive, and they print something like 38 million cards a year.
yeah,
So this business was like it was going really well, and then it's got even better. Anyway, Nick Jenkins, after he sold it, he's a very wealthy guy. He became like an angel investor, and he gives away a lot of his time to charities and like young business groups and stuff. But he lives not far from where I'm based, and I'm a director at the Chamber of Commerce here in Salisbury,
okay,
where I live. And we decided we were going to approach this guy, Nick, to come and do an event, which would be like a question and answer interview style, an evening with Nick
yeah,
Jenkins.
yeah,
Anyway, lo and behold, he agreed to it. So he was like, yeah, I'd be really happy to do that. So he came along. And I managed to talk myself into basically being the interview host for the evening.
No.
So I end up on stage with this guy who's, so you've heard of Stephen Bartlett, haven't you?
Yes.
Diary of a
Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah, I
So
watch him.
yeah, yeah. So he's been on with Stephen Bartlett. So
Okay.
I sat down and we went onto stage. It's an intimate event, so there's only about 50 people there. I sat down and I said, so thanks very much for joining us, Nick. And I saw a clip on LinkedIn recently where you've been interviewed by Stephen Bartlett for the podcast. He went, oh, yeah, Diary of a CEO. And I was like, Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and now you're here with me. And he laughed, and that sort of broke the ice. But yeah, there's not many creatives that I know would be willing to put themselves forward to do something like that. But I love it, absolutely love it, and I'm looking to do more of it. So yeah,
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's amazing that you're able to do that and feel comfortable in it as well. It's a huge, it's a huge attribute to have and a characteristic of an individual who's has the capability and the internal confidence to be able to do that. It's really great. With going through school, at what point did you see that you could step into creativity and have that be something that would be a change maker potentially, or even just another way of you being able to express yourself? Was it early on or did it come a bit later?
I think for me, it probably came a bit later on, like after school. I made decisions for my education based on like just what I enjoyed doing day to day. I wasn't really thinking long term, shall we say.
Yeah,
Excuse me. And I look back now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I do think that I wish I'd have maybe thought a little bit more earlier on about where my life would take me, but
yeah.
life's a bitch. But I think through school, I got through to my sort of A levels, which are like my senior years in comparison to you guys in the States. And I decided to take arts, design, technology, and English. So complementary subjects, English literature and language. I did a year of that and ended up dropping it because I wasn't interested. I was much more interested in the art and the design.
Right.
And I think because I dropped one of my subjects through A levels, I started applying for universities like everyone did.
Okay.
And I was applying, but I wasn't really that confident about whether I was making the right choice to go to study. So actually I actually got offered places, but I decided to reject them all. And I
Oh,
decided
wow.
instead of going to university, I went to college, which to do a foundation year. It's like a BTEC. I can't even remember what BTEC stands for now, but it's basically like a 12-month college course that pretty much if you get a pass, merit, distinction, if you get any sort of graded pass, you're pretty guaranteed to get into a university in
Okay.
the subject area that you specialize in. I decided to do that and use it as a bit of a confirmation that I do want to graphic design to a higher level because I wasn't 100% sure at that, even at that late stage. So I did that and did a year at college, got myself a little job as well. So I was working in a shop in Lichfield where I lived. And I was working as like a Saturday kid, working in this like department store, just on the electrical department selling Hoovers.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
on a Sunday, I'd do a bit of security on because and yeah, it was just like a really free and easy time, really. And I was spending my weeks in trying various disciplines: fine art, life drawing, photography, bit of typography, graphic design, doing all sorts of cool stuff,
Yeah.
earning a bit of coin at the weekend. So I was and going out for beers, very happy. And then the crunch came when it was like it's time to look at universities again. And my mum and dad were super keen for me to go because they're obviously both teachers, and the plan was always to try and get all three of the boys through. Me and my brothers through university, which they did. My brothers
Okay.
went on to study as well. But yeah, decided to study at a university called Staffordshire University in a city called Stoke-on-Trent, which is in the getting into the north of of England. And to be honest, once I got to university, I was just like a booze hound. We were just going out all the time, just on the lash. And I just enjoyed my first year there. I just partied all the way through.
Yeah,
And even at that point, I wasn't 100% sure if life as a professional creative was even. I didn't even know I was considering it at the time. So I was just having a good time. So
really.
yeah, it was an interesting time, really. And yeah, I
All right. So,
don't even know.
yeah, no, that answered it. That answered it. I want to, because the way that your school system is structured over there compared to the way it is here in the States, at what age are you when you're doing the college level thing?
So I was a bit later going away to college because I had that gap year effectively. So I would have come out of my A levels, which is so I'd have come out of A levels just about nearly 18,
Okay,
and I would have gone to university at 19,
got it.
nearly 20. So probably slightly older than you guys in the States, would that be? I don't quite
No,
remember.
no, not really. Because the way we have it over here, high school, which is your higher end of main schooling, is between 15 to 18. And then after 18, that's usually when you've graduated and you start looking at colleges or universities and stuff like that. So you're still right on about the same track.
Sort
Uh,
of age,
yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so our compulsory schooling finishes at 16 when we do our GCSEs. I don't even know what that stands for, but that's just your first set of exams where and you'd normally take 10 GCSEs, and then people make a choice at that age whether they go on to higher, like further education, which would be A levels, which is what I did. I
Okay.
think they're now called AS levels. So you can do a year of AS levels and then leave, or you can carry on do A levels and bump them up.
Okay.
So when I was there, we didn't have AS levels. I was the last year of the old format A level. So I did that and then a college year and then uni. But you can basically leave at 16, 17, 18, or you could go on to do more college, more university, you could do a master's, doctorate. There's so many ways, aren't there? But yeah, that's how it works. I think that it's the same sort of age, but just different names, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And do you have the opportunity at those levels, 16, 17, if you decide to stop and you just want to go off and work, is that an option or no?
At 16, yes.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, but you are supposed to complete your schooling to the age of 16. There
Yeah.
are people who don't, but parents are risking fines and potential jail time if they fail to get their kids through school.
Okay.
It,
Gotcha.
it can be quite harsh. So,
The reason I was asking that is because my dad, he was from a large family, 11 children total. And they're from the South. Tennessee is where both
mm,
sides of my family are from.
yeah,
And at that time, when he was growing up, there wasn't a whole lot of work opportunities. So they're usually working on other people's farms, different things like that.
yeah,
And my dad dropped out of school at, I want to say 12. So
really.
yeah, he didn't even go on to any of the higher educations
Wow,
until really later, even after I was born. He went back to take some college courses because he was a mechanic
right,
by trade. And so he had to take some college courses in order to be able to get certifications to continue doing mechanic work. But he didn't go to any of the higher education type grades that normal people would do. So I was just curious how
yeah.
that played out over there.
Yeah, yeah. No, they want you to go all the way through to 16 over here. But yeah, not everyone does. You'll have like farmers' kids who are like multi-generation farmers.
Yeah,
And it's like they don't need an education per se. They just need to know how to run that farm because they will be doing that and passing it on through generation to generation. But you are supposed to go through, yeah.
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So you're partying, you're having a grand old time. Are there ladies in the mix at this point as well?
Yeah, I couldn't possibly say.
Okay, we'll be bypass that then. Um,
I'm a happily married man, shall we say, but
Gotcha.
I wasn't when I was at university. So.
Gotcha. All right. All right. So you're having a great time partying, being around your mates. When does the creative thought come into play of, I think I'm going to step into this as a career?
Probably we did 3 years of university here,
Okay.
and second year I found a friendship group in my on my course that started to, should we say, like properly focus my mind. People I just respected as creatives, as designers, albeit students, but also really liked them as people. And we had a study group, so we didn't have a lot of timetabled contact time with our tutors in the year 2 and year 3 at uni, and it was very much it had to be self-motivated. So we took it upon ourselves in our little group to motivate each other. So we would make sure we were in the studio at 10 and we left at 5. We'd have lunch together, we'd socialize together, we'd go out and have drinks together. But what's really nice is that friendship group. We still speak to each other now. We've got a WhatsApp chat.
Nice.
That friendship, that camaraderie is carried on into later life, and it's been really nice because we've all had children at similar times. All of our kids are of a similar age, and it's really nice actually. But yeah, I owe a lot to my friends from university because they certainly helped iron me out, shall we say. And I think they would all probably say similar things about one another, that without each other, we would have probably struggled, but life could have been potentially quite different. But the friendship group was like guys and girls. It was all platonic as well. There weren't any couples in the study group. That it was, yeah, just a really good time. And I think at that year 2, I started to switch on to, okay, what's life going to look like after uni? Because once this 3 year period comes to an end,
Yeah.
what next? And it was then really, and I had a good 2 years of studying hard. I got I don't know what the grades are at uni in America, but yeah, in the UK you have a first, which is the top grade, and then you have a 2-1, 2-2, and a third. And then after that, I think it might be a fail after that. But I got a 2-1 and I was very close to a first, but I came out with a really good grade. And I've got to be honest, of all of my qualifications, that's the one I'm most proud of. The like GCSE, A level, college, I did just enough to get to me to the next stage. I think when I was in year 2 at uni, I started to realise there isn't any more education after this, so I need to make this one count.
Yeah.
So I'd scraped by to get to the next level, next rung of the ladder, next rung of the ladder. And then I get to uni and I'm sat there, I think, with all these great people I've got great friendship and respect for.
Yeah.
I'm sat there thinking, shit, man, I can't let these people down. I can't let myself down, my family. I need to make a good go at this. And I did. I've actually got my portfolio down here by my desk. It's
Okay.
followed me wherever I've gone, but it's still there.
Nice.
I'm quite proud of that, to be honest. I look at it now and it's like quite dated, but in terms of content. But yeah, it got to me. That was the start of the journey into professional design. Yeah.
Okay. The what I found fascinating about that is that you had that group of friends that were in the creative field. And in the US, there's not a whole lot of that
Mm.
continues on after. And the fact that you have that mini community, I think that says many things profoundly about what that does in support of the creative in and of itself, to be able to have those connections that still last
Mm.
beyond the schooling, to where you're saying you have the WhatsApp connection there. You're still having those communications of being able to say, hey, how you doing? How's things going for you?
Yeah.
Going this way for me. To have that ongoing is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it has been good. And as a group, we had a really tough year last year as well. I won't go into too much detail on this because it's not really my story to tell. But one of the group wasn't one of the designers, but a good friend. His wife passed away very suddenly last
Mm,
year, just 40, out of the blue, brain hemorrhage, and
wow.
um, it was a really tough time. That was.
Yeah.
for all of us, because I think it makes you feel very mortal,
Yeah.
very
Oh, yeah.
quick. And it's certainly knocked me about because obviously the similarities I share with this couple. Our kids are a similar age, and she was younger than me.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
always quite scary, and that WhatsApp chat was very active for quite a while. Calmed down a little bit now. That the nice thing about it is that we don't need to be in touch with each other every single day. But when we do catch up, it's as if we were together yesterday.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and I think that chat will always be on my phone. And lovely people, creative people, very talented people, all doing similar but things that are linked by our time at university and those shared experiences there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. The the decision after college or whatever study that you had there, once it's finished, are you thinking that, all right, I'm going to go work for somebody else? Or are you thinking, I think I can give this a try on my own?
No, I was thinking go and get a job.
Okay.
I was thinking my focus was get yourself out there and get some experience, get a job working for a small agency where you can touch lots of different aspects of design.
Yeah.
I wasn't too interested in getting a job with like a massive agency because I think you just become a number. You
Yeah.
go too big too early. And I wanted to be involved with client acquisition. I wanted to be involved with the sales process. I wanted to see how it like worked because,
Yeah.
you know, like just sitting there designing logos all day is great fun, but how do you find those clients? How do you convert them? How do you charge? I was like a sponge at this point, and I'd finally
Okay.
found my focus.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking for, like a small boutique agency where it was a smaller team that I could fit in and just absorb from all angles.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's what I did in the end. I got a job with a brilliant little agency called PhD Design. And I was there for about 6 or 7 years, which is quite a long time for
Yeah.
a more junior designer to stay around. But it was local to where I lived. It was like a 20-minute drive in the morning. And my first boss there, Pete, I still speak to this day.
Cool.
And he's a great guy. And again, don't speak to him a lot, but whenever I think of him, I send a quick text or whatever. And he's a good guy, Pete, a really
Yeah.
solid bloke. Yeah, a lot to be grateful to him for because he gave me my break in the industry at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example for the audience as well. The fact that you wanted to work for somebody else to where you could get to understand how everything operated and functioned. You were interested in not just creating, but you wanted to learn everything about all of the things, the touch points throughout the process so that you would have that extra knowledge. And I think that's a huge value point for the community of creatives, especially the younger ones that are coming up. If they can look at their potential starting point of their career with that type of mindset, it will potentially allow them to go farther and even faster, farther.
I think you can't just be a designer now, especially if you want to set up on your own. You can't just sit there one day and go, "Oh, I'm going to do this for myself now." You really need to. I worked for about 7 or 8 years in industry before I set up on my own, and there are little bits from all of the jobs that I had that I've taken and put into my own process now because I saw what worked and I saw what I didn't think worked.
Yeah.
And you need that, but you need to be more than a designer. Work as a self-employed designer, you need to have a basic understanding of like how your books are going to work because you've got to turn a profit, and that in itself will help you to formulate what to charge. But you need to have an understanding of what's an overhead and how you cover these things. And there's so much more to it,
Yes.
and you only learn that by experience because there's no school or college course that will give you that real world experience. I think that's why I was hungry to get into a smaller agency. And I've never worked in any sort of like massive agencies. A lot of people have got McCann Erickson on their CV. I've not got that.
Yeah.
But what I have got is a ton of real world experience of working with everyone from Joe Bloggs, the plumber down the road, to the CEO of an executive jet aviation catering company.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to all of them in the same way. And
Yeah.
within 2 or 3 meetings, I'll be laughing and joking and bantering and swearing in meeting because that's just the way I am. And you start to learn to find your own way.
Yeah.
But it takes quite a leap of faith and a bit of confidence to do it. But
Yeah. For sure. That's great. The process of being at that small boutique agency, did you find any of it difficult at all?
I find something different. Yeah, because I was a junior and maybe a bit more outspoken back then because I was hungry for it, wanted to really start to take control of jobs and be more influential on the day to day. I did struggle at times with the pecking order,
Yeah.
and we didn't carry quite as much weight as I'd like.
Yeah.
But that changed with time, and I had a few instances where I had to be knocked down a peg or two. But I was very fortunate that my boss then was a very similar personality to me, so he really understood where my frustrations are. So I was lucky in that respect. We did butt heads a few times as well, which was quite interesting. But that's only that was only like coming from a place of mutual respect.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's still a sound bloke, and I still, as I say, speak to him now. So yeah, I think that would probably be the only thing that I really struggled with. That I wanted more,
Yeah.
maybe a bit too soon, and pecking order was a bit of an issue because when you've got a team of four, I'm a quarter of the company,
Yeah.
so you're a big part of the sort of furniture. So yeah, that would be my
I can understand that though, based off of the fact that you're the first child,
yeah.
number one. So you're the lead to begin with, and within your brothers, you played sports, so you had the mindset of I want to excel and I want to be the best that I can be. Then you get into a working environment where you're not the top, you're not the head, you're not the lead, you're
Yeah,
lower down on the rung. So you have to figure out how to fit in and fit in comfortably, as well as being able to make sure you don't get fired the next day.
yeah, that's it.
So,
It's an interesting one, definitely. But
yeah.
yeah, I survived. I'm still here.
You said you were there for about 6 years,
About seven.
seven.
Yeah.
Okay. At what point in those seven did you start thinking, maybe I want to go off and do this, have my own
I,
agency?
I didn't. I
Did
didn't.
it? Okay.
No. So what happened? So what brought a close to my time there was towards the end of it. I was living with a girlfriend, and we were a lot of people had us down for the next thing. It will be engagement, marriage, kids, blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
Because we got on really well. She was great. I'd like to think she thought I was great as well, and it was brilliant for a long time. And then all of a sudden, it just changed, and I think we got together at quite a sort of pivotal time in her life in particular. Her dad was poorly and was terminally ill with cancer.
Hmm.
I think the relationship with myself maybe brought a bit of stability to her life at that time. And unfortunately, during our time together, her dad did pass away.
Yeah.
And it was not long after that things started to change. So I don't know whether the relationship was a little bit of an anchor for her. And then when she started to go through the grieving process for her dad, she didn't need me. It could have been that. I don't know. And if she hears this and I'm way off mark, I do apologise. But it's a long time ago now anyway. So I
Right.
don't think
Yeah.
anyone would be upset by me saying that because it's way over 10, 15 years ago. No, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, at that point in time, when we did split up, I was devastated. I was really upset. Ended up at, what was I, 26, 27, having to move back in with my parents because I had nowhere else to live,
Okay.
which was a bit of a kick in the balls, to be honest. And I ended up moving back, and I started to reassess my own sort of situation at that point. And it was like, okay, I love my job. I love what I do. I really like the people I work with. The company's great. We do nice work. But I don't know if I'm ever going to achieve what I want to achieve within this business because it was such a small business, there's a ceiling, and I was
Yeah.
probably getting to that ceiling
Right.
because there was another guy who was slightly ahead of me, who'd been there slightly longer. And looking back now, I was 100% right because that guy that was ahead of me there now owns part of that company.
Okay.
So I was correct in what I was thinking, and I was thinking I need to probably look for pastures new.
Yeah.
But at the time, my mental state wasn't great because I was like really upset about splitting with this ex. So I decided all through life, really, although I was a little bit of a booze hound in my younger days and I liked to go out and have a drink and whatnot, I'd always made reasonably sensible decisions in the bigger picture. And at this point now, where I was, I decided that I was going to quit my job, sell my car, and go traveling.
Okay.
And that's what I did. So it's the first time in life at 27, I think I was, that I was like, I'm going to do something a little bit off the wall here and a little bit of a curveball in life. So I managed to get myself a visa for Australia, like a traveler's visa. And I basically saved up a shitload of cash and just had prepared myself for up to 12 months living in Australia. And it was there really to help clear the mind just before I'm 30. What am I going to do in my 30s? What is the next thing for me? Get over the ex as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you know what? I did all of those things. So I had a friend who was living in Adelaide at the time. She'd gone out before I went. And then there was another couple of friends. One of my friends, Lucy, who was an old school friend who'd since moved to Wales, she decided she was going to do something similar.
Okay.
And a friend from the village she lived in also decided to join us as well. So there's going to be four of us in a little sort of friendship group going out to travel. But we were very like open with each other to say if there's an opportunity that comes when we're out there and we decide to take it, we don't necessarily have to stay together as a group. We can stay together as a group or go off and do separate things, whatever happens. And we're all cool with that. And it was great. So off we went to Australia. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, Lucy and James, who were with me at the time, decided they wanted to get a camper van and go and live the dream, traveling up the coast, living out of this camper van. And I'm quite a big guy, and I
Yeah.
thought, there's no way I'm going to live in a camper van with two other people
Yes.
for weeks on end.
Yeah.
There's no way. I weigh 100 kilograms, over 100 kilograms. I am not going to fit in a van. It ain't happening. And I thought it didn't sit with me that it was something I wanted to do. And I said, look, guys, you crack on. I'm going to go to Adelaide and meet Kate, who'd been here for a little bit longer than. So I got myself a flight from Perth, where we were, and I flew over to Adelaide, which is in the centre in the south, and a few weeks there. Met a couple of lads there that I got on well with in the hostel, an Irish kid and a guy from Kent in the UK, in England. We decided, like his name was this guy from Kent, and we decided to get on the Garn train and travel up to Alice Springs, in the middle of the desert in the outback, and have a bit of time traveling around the outback, which was amazing. And then we decided to go to Sydney, so did that, and it was the best time. It was the best time. But whilst a lot of people travel to Australia and fall in love with it, I really enjoyed Australia, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I found like it had really good things
Right.
about it and really like weird bad things about, like the bad things are like literally the list of animals that can kill you is like 4 times longer than the list of animals that can't.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in like a tiny little 10 millimeter wide spider could kill 50 men like just by farting in the same room as them. And you think, yeah, it didn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, which was really weird. So they were talking a lot of chat when I was there. Australia's got a big drink driving problem.
Yeah.
Because that's probably because you got drive through off licenses. go and have a beer, drive up, buy a crate of beers, and drink them while you drive. There's a coincidence here, and so it was a really weird. It was a cool place, but it was a really weird place as well. And I got out of the trip what I needed to get out of it, and decided to come back. So I was only there for a couple of months in the end,
Okay.
but while I was out there was when I decided I'm going to go back to the UK and I'm going to set my own design studio up.
Okay.
And I remember on the back of a fag packet, albeit just sketching down like an idea of what I wanted it to look like. And I booked myself a flight home and so yeah, and that was it. So at the end of 2011, that was.
Okay. And that trip, were you able to get past that letdown of the relationship fairly quickly, or did it drag on for you?
That trip was about a year after we actually split. So
Okay.
I look back now and I think, yeah, I was harboring grieving feelings for a while.
Yeah.
A trip definitely helped me to move past that. And the really interesting thing is about that as well is that ex I still speak to today. We didn't split up on bad terms. It's very much a social media, Facebook, Instagram like connection.
Yeah.
Don't chat very often at all,
Sure.
maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But I still see what she's doing. She still sees what I'm doing. And it's very friendly, amicable. It wasn't for a period just short after. There's always a little bit of
Right.
animosity. But in the main now, we actually had a dog together and
Okay.
the dog went with her. And she now lives in Washington in the US.
Okay.
Yeah, so she actually got married to a US shot soldier. I don't think they're still married actually, but she took the dog over.
Oh
Like, so
man.
to be honest, I was more gutted she was
You
taking that
lost
dog away.
you lost two rather than just one.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he bloody died earlier this year.
Oh
So yeah,
man.
she got in touch to say, "Oh, Alfie's died." I was like, "Oh no!" He was about 16, this little dog, but bless her, she made a point of getting in touch to let me know. And yeah,
Sure.
but yeah, that trip to Australia, I was well past it after that.
Okay. Thinking you're sketching up the idea, figuring out how you're going to do it. Do you have it in your mind of already starting to think about potential clients, or are you just thinking about structure of getting it up and running?
Structure. It was more like, what does this look like? How do I make it happen? What do I need in terms of office space, in terms of, I don't know, just I wasn't really thinking about clients. I was almost trying to come up with the idea of like, how can I give myself the environment to do this? Because I knew in my heart of hearts, if I went back to my mum and dad with a good solid plan,
Yeah.
they would support me in doing this because that's the parents they are. So I'm very fortunate that I have them as parents. I'm very lucky. And I just needed to create the space to be able to work, do what I'm good at. And then I knew that I could live cheaply for a short period of time and then use that time to build a client base. And ultimately, that's what I did. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was interesting. It was an interesting time because like the business plan initially was earn enough money to eat and live. it.
Yeah.
There wasn't much more to it. I knew like my mum and dad were very good. They looked after me. They kept me. They didn't charge me any board for a period of time. And yeah, it was very much I need to eat some food occasionally. And I would like to maybe play rugby with my own old rugby club again once a week.
Okay.
So I needed to have enough cash to do those things. And that was the business plan. Just get by,
Yeah.
then see how it was after a year, and then reassess. So it was very much in the early days, like feast or famine, month to month. So yeah, it was an experience.
Okay. And how was that first year of business?
I turned a profit, which
Nice.
not many people do.
For sure.
Turned a profit of 1,100 quid. I started from nothing, and I turned over at the end of the year. I turned over 32,500 pounds, which I was at the time was decent. and
Yeah.
that was decent.
Yeah.
I took the profit of, I didn't take any wage or salary for
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
But at 6 months, I decided to take on an office space. So I moved out of the spare bedroom at my mum and dad's house and took myself to a little industrial estate where I rented a room for £300 a month. And my mum and dad were dead against it. Oh, it's a lot of money. Oh, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, but I am sure. And they were like, it's a lot of pressure. And I was like, yes, but it's positive pressure.
Yeah.
Like I've outgrown that space in 6 months. If
Yeah.
I don't make this leap now, I never will. And I need to make this leap because I need to have a dedicated space. And I was right because I did.
Yeah.
And it paid dividends because I've got this space now. And in doing that, taking on that cheap little office, I gave myself a real world presence. So I had now had the ability to invite people to my office to have meetings. And we weren't like, I'd done that a couple of times with people I'd got to know and clients. I said, well, you can come and sit and we'll have a Mac meeting on screen and we can do those final few changes. But it was really weird because I'll be at my desk and they'd be sat on the end of the bed, the spare bed. And it was like, it's a bit weird. This, you couldn't do that with every client. But now I've got this office and it's okay, I've got a dedicated space and I can invite people in and I can feel like a professional.
Yeah.
And that was great then. And from there on in, it did turn up a few notches. And yeah, it was good. It was good from there.
Yeah. I'm seeing this pattern take place within your story so far of where you have this internal intuition about things and you have the ability to be able to make a decision about what you're doing that is for the betterment of your life. And you're not afraid to take the step to go in that direction, which is, it's very profound for me because a lot of times creatives, they always have the trepidation of not wanting to take the step because of the fear that might rise up within them, the unknowing of what's going to potentially take place, and they won't take the step. What I'm seeing from your story is you've always had that mindset of I'm not afraid to take this step because I believe that it's going to work out.
Yes, I think there's always a risk
Sure.
being employed. There's always a risk. But I was willing to accept that quite early on. And I set the first business up in 2012. So I'm in deep into my, what is it now, 13, 14 years in. So yes, there's risk. Yes, there's pressure. Yes, there was fear. But in the first 10 years of being self-employed, I had achieved more in those 10 years than I had the 20 before that.
Yeah.
Now, some people may say that's an age thing. No, it's a taking control thing. Because
Correct.
I actually sat there and said, no, I'm going to do this for myself and I'm going to take control of my own life
Yeah.
and I'm going to make things happen because I don't want to wait for anyone else to help me do that. I want to do it for myself.
Yeah.
And in the first less than 10 years, under 10 years, so from starting out setting up as my first business, within 5 years, I'd met Sarah, who's now my wife.
Okay.
We had our daughter and we bought a house. So would that have happened whilst I was working for someone else? We'll never know.
Correct.
But it would not have happened in such a short space of time. I'm convinced of that
Yeah.
because you're waiting for someone else and you, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You don't know how it would have gone, but
Right.
I'm convinced that actually stepping up, taking control of things was the best thing I could have done when I did.
Yeah. Yeah. That it, you don't always know, but that instinctual opportunity led you in that direction, found your wife, have your child, and like you're saying, it could have not happened,
Mm,
could have happened, but may not have happened as fast.
yeah.
if you hadn't have made the move and taken that leap of faith in yourself, which a lot of times I think creatives struggle with faith in themselves and what they do, because especially being self-employed and independently employed, it's always a question mark as to, okay, once I finish up this job, or is the next job going to come in and from where? But you having that ability, that willingness to go out and do and get after it. And also, too, your willingness to be able to step out, introduce yourself. I'm sure that played quite a bit of role in garnering clientele who were willing to put their trust in you.
When I first set up, I maybe wasn't as confident in myself as I am now.
Okay.
So I had the confidence to get going and take that leap of faith. Public speaking is not a problem for me now, but back then it was because there's in the UK. You've heard of BNI, Business Network
Yes.
International.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's same as in America. Like that's massive over here, but there's also a lot of spin-off independent groups, very
Right.
similar sort of ilk. And I found a really good one. I was recommended to it when I first set up by a guy who I knew, and he was saying, "Oh, you need to go along to this group. Really good people. Go along, get networking. It will help drive inquiries." So I went along, and I was having a really lovely time listening to all of these impressive business people stand up and talk very confidently to a room full of 20, 30 people
Yeah.
about what they do, what they're looking for, and what referrals and blah, 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 blah. And they were going through it, and every single one had a different sort of personality and a different approach and a different style of speaking. And I was sat there really enjoying myself listening to it. And it suddenly dawned on me they're going round the room and they're coming to me. And at some point, I'm going to have to do this. And I was not prepared. And I felt like a duck out of water because I'd I turned up wearing a suit because business networking need to be smart. Wear
Right.
a suit. Well, I was playing rugby at the time, so a shaved head, which
Yeah.
has followed me. Got a shaved head and I'm wearing a suit. I look like a bloody doorman. I rocked up and I felt really wooden and uncomfortable anyway. And then I had to stand in front of all of these people and I was shaking like a shitting dog. I was so scared.
Yeah.
And it got to me and I stood and I just said, "Hi, I'm Gareth. I'm a graphic designer. And if you want any graphic design, please give me a shout." Just sat down and there
Okay.
was just stunned silence. And yeah, there was like, I just thought, oh my God, I look such a dick. And afterwards, I got I was trying to make a quick exit at the end of this meeting, but there was a guy there who is a brilliant guy who I've lost touch with a little bit. He's still on my database, but a guy called John Stiliano, and he was a soft skills coach. So we would teach you how to present better, how to speak better publicly, how to interact with team, like a leadership coach. Really interesting guy, very good at what he does. And he gave me his card and he went, "Please give me a call. I'd like to have a coffee." I did. I called him and we went and had a sit down and he just gave me some pointers over a drink and he was brilliant and he gave me the confidence to actually not try and be something that I'm not.
Yeah.
It very much be yourself, be authentic, and be confident with it because you're good at what you do. Nobody in that room wants to see you fail. And the silence that came after that awful pitch was born more from sympathy than it was from disappointment.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
just that people,
Yeah.
oh, gutted, poor lad, rather than it wasn't that at all. It was definitely the form of say. And I went back the next week and I had what I did was I had 5 bullet points written down,
Okay.
just single words to as an aid memoir. And I planned it and I thought about it and I knew what I was going to say. I had an intro and an ending and 5 bullet points. That's all I needed because you only get 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And I delivered that with far more confidence than the previous week. And that was it. That was me done. I had a formula, it worked, and I was off. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I can relate to the exact opposite of that in that I would be shaking ridiculously.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't even get out that I'm a graphic designer and say, "Can you reach out to me?" And I definitely would have not have gone back the second week.
Yeah.
I'm very, I can do one-on-one stuff with people fairly comfortably. And even surprisingly, Gareth, I'm finding this podcast concept very comfortable. Never in my wildest years would have thought I would be doing this at any point in time.
Yeah.
And literally did my first episode December 29th. And now you are the 17th episode,
Wow.
and I have three more this week to do yet.
Yeah.
Never in my wildest dreams had I ever anticipated being doing this
Yeah.
because I've always been so afraid of getting up in front of people and speaking, having a conversation. I correlated it to everything, correlated it to everything. So for me doing this, I'm surprising myself. It's almost as if I'm in shock because I don't really comprehend what I'm actually doing. I don't realize it. Okay, I'm actually doing something here. I've got 17 now under my belt, and I've got three more to do. So it seems almost impossible that I've done this already. But
Well,
it,
you're just having a conversation. That's what you got to break it down in your mind. You need to just tell yourself, "I'm just having a conversation."
yeah,
Cruise it. It's just like having a catch up with your cousin who you've not seen for years. And there's people who speak regularly in front of massive audiences who get nervous. So it's not wrong to be nervous, but you just have to find ways of coping with it. And you've obviously found your niche because you're talking about something that you're passionate about. So
yes,
it's easy.
yeah, yeah,
And if the topic and the subject matter is easy,
right.
you just got to get over the hurdle. And once you scratch the itch, you're off and running. And soon you'll be up to 20, then it'll be 50, then it'll be 100. And it does take shape.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So you're 6, 7 years in with the business. Things are going well, seemingly based off of what you've said so far.
Yeah.
Is there any bumps starting to take place where you're like, all right, this is a little bit strange. I'm not comfortable in this.
The challenge of going from me to we
Okay.
is a big
Yeah.
step.
Yes.
The first employee is doubling your workforce. So never, never, you can't say never, but rarely will you double your workforce in one hire. So from going from me to we is a huge step.
Yeah.
Going from two to three is less of a leap, I think, but it's bringing people into the business means it takes on a completely different form and shape and brings in more complexity than I was prepared for. The first person I employed was actually a guy I knew through rugby connections. It was his mum.
Okay.
She knew the industry. She'd worked in a similar role. I brought her in like a sort of administerial, admin driven sort of traffic manager. So answering phones, dealing with emails, liaising with suppliers, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
which meant I could focus on the design and the new business. So it felt like the right thing to do at the time. But I think what I'd done is I'd massively overestimated the amount of work I needed or needed to be covered by that role.
Yeah.
So she came in on a 4 day week, Monday through to Thursday. And in hindsight, like looking back, after she left, I actually looked at her computer and there was like the browser history. She was just online shopping most of the time. She was there.
Yeah.
And now she shouldn't have been doing that, no. But I should have been a bit more switched on to what I was asking this lady. She had an easy life.
Right.
She'd done everything she needed to do. She'd done everything I asked of her, and there was nothing more to do. But it was a lesson learned that was. And unfortunately, she had an accident in work. She actually tripped and fell down some stairs in work. Really hurt herself. Really hurt herself. And unfortunately, when she came back to work, I decided that it was going to be a case I needed to let her go because I didn't have enough work to keep her on. I just couldn't justify it. She wasn't adding anything to the bottom line. She wasn't a fee earning role, and it was just costing me money to employ her. That was a lesson learned.
Okay.
The next hire that I made was probably the best hire I ever made. It was a designer. So that second hire was it was a much better role to fill because it was going to be a fee earning role. So the
Right.
work that person put out, we were going to make money on.
Yeah.
And he was great, actually. Dan, he was with me for about 4 years, and he messaged me on Facebook. So I had a Facebook page that I put stuff out on, and he messaged me, and his name I recognised because he'd comment on everything, share things, inbox message, comments, reply, blah blah blah. He was great, and he was really interested. So I felt like a rock star because I was like, I've got a fan,
Right.
amazing.
Right.
But yeah, I still speak to him today as well. But bringing him on, he was studying at university, and I brought him on in like a temporary role, part time, and then eventually he went full time with me, and he was brilliant. He was fantastic for the business. But yeah, it was polar opposites to the first. It was a bad move on my part. The second one was a good move.
Yeah.
The third hire that I made was not a good one, and that
Mm.
is where the root of my mental health challenges really start.
Okay.
It was not a good hire. That
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to think of ways to talk about this without throwing myself under the bus, just in case this person like hears it,
Okay. Okay.
because I have some opinions on it that I feel were confirmed to be like close to fact.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
Dan was on board. We've been working well as like Batman and Robin, and we got to a point where it was like, shit, we're really busy here. We need an extra pair of hands. I didn't have any money to pay a recruitment agency or anything like that. So we're going to do this. We're going to have to do it on our own. So we crafted a Facebook post as a job advert and put that out, and 3,000 people saw it within a week.
Yeah.
So we had several applications. A couple were really good, a couple were shockingly poor. But we got a short list of three, and we brought these people in. And ultimately, the one lady who interviewed really well, portfolio looked great. She seemed a really nice person. I was happy enough to say to Dan, I've done the first interview. I think the second stage needs to be you and me. Structured sort of interview scenario, but you and me sit down, we have a drink, we have a real nice chill chat and talk about work and talk about whatever comes up. And that's what we did. So
Yeah.
then she went away again, and then Dan and I sat down, and I was like, what do you think? And he was sold, and so was I. So we offered this lady the role,
Yeah.
and she was great. As I say, as a designer, she was really good, and she still is really good. She's got a really nice style. She's got a great handle on the software, and I cannot fault her. She's really good at what she does. And she came in and made an impact. She was working in a new environment with two lads, which was different from what she'd gone previously in her career.
Yeah.
But after about 2 or 3 months, I started to feel uncomfortable in the studio. I felt like there was a bit of an atmosphere in there. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And at this point, there was myself, Dan, this lady, and another lady called Sarah, not my wife, another Sarah, who would come in twice a week. So half day on a Tuesday, half day on a Thursday, or something like that. And she would basically clear up the mess that I left behind me. So I would just crack on with shit, and she'd come in and just tidy up the loose ends. And she was brilliant, actually. She was a friend of myself and my wife's, and I knew her husband as well. And we would train at the gym, and it all worked out really well for this lady to come on board.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would be out the office more at this period of time doing new business because I've got the two designers in. And one day I got a call from Sarah to say, I need to speak to you in private. I was like, okay. She sat down. We went out for a coffee or something. I can't remember what it was now, but we went out and she said, look, this lady, this designer, she's not happy. And I don't think Dan's happy either. Well, oh, okay, that's not what I get from Dan. Whenever I speak to Dan, life's good. But she basically said, look, I am betraying their trust a little bit here, but you're my friend before you're my boss, which I really appreciated that.
Sure.
And she said, I think you really need to know. And she basically explained to me that as soon as I left the office the other day, the tittle tattling started. So this lady had turned to Dan, he can't say that, he can't do this, and that's not right, and this isn't right, and blah, 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 and I don't like this, and I don't like that, blah, 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 blah. And Dan was a brilliant guy, a really nice bloke, but he was quite easily led and therefore quite easy to manipulate.
Mm.
And his mindset started to shift more towards that because I wasn't there as often as I had been in the past. And yeah, so
Yeah. So
this was going on and it wasn't very pleasant. And I'd started to pick up on bits of the unrest, shall we say,
yeah,
but nothing was said to me. It was always done behind my back when I left. So that was a pretty shit time, really, because I thought I'd built an environment where it was a beautiful studio office and there was free parking, there was a little breakout area, a soft, like a table, foosball table. We had a nice big red sofa to sit on. We had a little kitchenette. We had our own toilet, private bathroom. It was lovely. And we'd have quarterly team nights out. So we go and do an escape room, or we did axe throwing one.
yeah, yeah,
I felt I was doing all the right things to make a really nice environment to work in. And
yeah,
unbeknownst to me, there was quite a lot of unrest going on under the scenes, and it made me really uncomfortable and quite hurt because I was really working hard to engage the team,
yeah.
and yeah, things started to unravel from there. Really,
Okay. And with that, are you starting to see that the confidence of what you thought you had going on starting to deteriorate based off the fact that there's other things taking place and you're not fully aware of it? You have a sense that there's something just not right, but it's not going in the direction that you had envisioned. It's not going in the direction that you had built it up to at that point, even. It's starting to tail off. And that mental struggle that's going on in the mind, is that starting to just become more and more of a downer for you having to go in each and every day?
yes, I think not wanting to go into your own office, your own studio, is a really shit place to be.
Yeah.
And like mentally, I felt quite let down by this team that I was really working hard to try and engage with and be friendly with because I'm a graphic designer. I'm not a businessman. That
Yeah.
was my sort of like mindset at the time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a really nice creative space where creative people could flourish.
Yeah.
And the work was being churned out. We were doing some really nice work. And then, yeah, but there was an undercurrent of discontent.
Yeah.
And Sarah, this lady who worked for me, did betray their trust, but she did it from a place of loyalty to me as a
Yeah.
friend, which I'm forever grateful to this day.
Sure.
And I got to a point where I was fucking fed up. I
Okay.
was really fed up. And I took advice from a client who was also a networking colleague who was an HR consultant.
Ah,
And I said, this is the situation. What can I do about it? And her response was, what do you want to do about it? So I told her what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was basically have a little bit of an amnesty and just call a meeting and go, what's wrong? Have
yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
And this lady said, that's a great way of doing it.
Okay.
And I went, oh, I didn't think I'd be able to. And she went, no, open channels of communication. Amnesty is a great word. Say what you want. This is an open forum. Nothing's going to come back at it. You want to call me a fucking twat? You can call me a fucking twat, and nothing's going to bite you on the arse from it.
Yeah.
That's a great platform to do it from. So that's what we did. So I had Karen, this lady, come in and sit and as my backup as a referee. So if I was saying something I shouldn't be saying, she would push nudging me. You can't say that,
Yeah.
you know. And so there was a minutes taken, records taken in that respect.
Nice.
But this is the thing, like every Monday at 9:30, we would have half an hour. We get into the office at 9. We had half an hour to clear our inbox, get ourselves prepared. Then we'd sit down and have a Monday morning meeting. And I was really keen for everyone to chair that meeting. Like every few weeks, you'd have to chair it. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it all the time. I wanted
Yeah.
ship of that. Yeah. So it was my week to chair it. So at 9:25, as agreed, Karen walks in. Oh, hello, Karen. Cup of tea or coffee? And I could see everyone. Sarah was aware that this was happening, but the other two were not. And you could see him shifty. What's going on here? So I put the kettle on, get everyone drinks. We sat down, and they all sort of sat down very gingerly. And I said, we're not doing it like we normally would. We're going to have a little bit of a chat. And just went to say to everyone, I know you've not had time to prepare for this, but I didn't want you to prepare for it. I want to hear it raw and uncensored. What's wrong? And we launched into it. And we sat there for 4 hours.
Wow. Wow.
And it all came out. It all came out. Or I say it all came out. The discontent was aired.
Yeah.
Not everything came out, but I'll get to that in a minute. But we had tears, we had laughter, we had more tears, we had anger. It was a supercharged 4 hours. But the ultimate upshot of it was that I said, right, in a month, we're going to come back and we're going to do this again. And we're going to put some measures in place between now and then to see how we're all doing. Have things got better? Because ultimately, we can't just talk about it. We've got to deal with it. So that's what we did. We put that in the diary that day, and in 4 weeks, we were going to come back. But we didn't need that meeting because the problem, i.e., this lady, 2 weeks later, handed her resignation in. I got out of it what I wanted to get out of it, which was harmony back in the office.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it was interesting, shall we say.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but what, sorry, I don't, my screen just went to sleep then. That was weird. But what happened after this lady left, I sat down with Dan one day and I said, she never liked me, did she? And he said, I can't say. And I'm like, that's a yes.
Yeah.
She fucking hated my guts.
Yeah.
And the problem was, and I never said this to anyone else. I said to him there, I said, she fucking hated my guts. She didn't like it that I was younger than her. She didn't like it that she had to take instruction from me. And she didn't like the fact that every now and again I would swear in the office.
Okay.
She didn't like my personality. I'm quite bold. I'm quite
Yeah.
out there. I'm
Sure.
quite vocal. She didn't like that. But you can't not like something and not say anything about it. If you don't like my approach to things, tell me. I'll change. Okay? Like I'll adapt because ultimately, like I'm one person in a team of four,
Yeah.
but you can't sit there and poison two people against me because you don't like it that I said fuck once in a sentence. I said fucking hell. I won't say fucking hell. If you ask me, I
Yeah.
will change it. Okay?
Yeah.
But you can't complain about it behind my back.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he never confirmed it. Bless him. He was very on the fence. He never confirmed it, but in not confirming it, he confirmed it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah. The silence a lot of times tells a story
yeah, yeah.
of what you already believe is the case. And
Mm,
two, it's this is a good example for the creative community as well, that in order for a creative environment to flourish,
mm,
you have to have a form of communication
mm,
where you're able to express things because you're expressing things creatively all day long.
yeah,
And you have a way of doing that. But if you don't have a way of doing that within the environment of which you're working, that's when the problems create and arise.
yeah,
And I think that you having those morning meetings, that was very, it's the word I want to use. That's showing a true leader from my perspective, is just you having those touch times where you said, talk about what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have any form of honest communication from everybody that you're trying to have the honest communication with,
yeah,
that's when things start falling apart.
yeah,
So for creative community and artists, independent artists, working artists who are in those environments, if you don't communicate what is frustrating you or something that you dislike, whether it's you're able to just go straight to the boss or your higher up, or you go to the HR department and say that, look, this is happening. I'm uncomfortable with this. I don't appreciate this. If you do not do that,
mm,
then you're not taking responsibility for yourself
no,
and the environment you're working in.
100%, 100%. It's one thing to not like somebody,
Yeah,
but then it's on you to do something about it. There's two things she could have done differently. She could have come to me and said, "Look, I'm really uncomfortable with like your language in the office."
yeah,
Okay, I'll turn it down. Problem solved. She could have come to me and spoken to me about several things that whatever it would have been,
yeah,
and we could have agreed to meet in the middle, whatever it would be.
yeah,
The other thing is she could have left. If you don't like it, you could go. But what she actually did was not neither of those things, and she actually started to twist and poison the rest of the tea, or try to. Whether she was doing that deliberately, I don't think she was trying to do that deliberately, but she didn't take ownership of her own situation, and she basically let it fester, which
right.
made her become bitter, and she was then projecting that bitterness onto the other members of the team,
Yeah,
which ultimately created an atmosphere and made me feel shit because I was working incredibly hard to try and create and cultivate an environment where people were comfortable and enjoying their work. And how wrong was I?
yeah, yeah,
And I just don't think I could have done anything any differently. And it would have probably ended up in the same place anyway. Sometimes people just don't get on. But what I did do well there, I think, is I dealt with the situation. This can't carry on. I'm gonna have to fucking nip this in the bud now.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
made a decision. And when she left, I sat down and I said, look, you handed notice in. I expect you to work your notice. You've got jobs that you need to get finished. But I would be happy to give you advice on if you're going to set up on your own, which is what she was going to do. I'd happily give you some advice that I wish I'd have had when I was in your shoes back then. And I did. And I shared some experiences of my own because you know what? I want to exit this relationship with my head held high. I knew she didn't like me. I knew she probably would take that advice and those pearls of wisdom that I shared and probably do nothing with them. But for myself, I felt like 20 minutes now just chatting about these things will make me feel as though I've done all I can to end the relationship on good terms. Since she left, I've never spoken to her. I see her pop up on Instagram on a few. I think she's got a couple of accounts on there, and she's doing really well. And I tip my hat to her, and I'm pleased that she's doing well. Do I hold grudges? Nah, not
Yeah,
really. I wish she had have dealt with the situation. I wish she'd dealt with it better
different.
in
Yeah,
a more, what's the word?
productive.
No, I wish she'd have just been a bit more grown up about it. I
Okay,
wish
yeah,
she'd have just taken ownership of it because all the cards were in her deck, really. All of the balls were in her court. She could have dealt with it a lot better than she did.
Yeah.
And that whole episode though was the start of more problems for me, because that sort of coincided with, have you heard about Brexit? Do you know what I mean by Brexit?
Yes.
So the UK leaving the European Union was all around that time, where there was this big referendum that nobody actually thought would go the way it went, but it did.
Yeah.
And the UK obviously was stepping out of Europe. And what that actually did to my business at the time, I'd secured some accounts and some clients that were spending like quite a lot of money with us, but they were tied into Europe. So
Okay.
in leaving Europe, what happened was they had to make some changes to their patterns and spending patterns. Their marketing budgets were slashed, and
Oh,
ultimately,
okay. Yeah.
I was about a third of my revenue, my turnover, down in a year,
Oh, wow.
which was catastrophic. And that, with all of the stuff going on with this member of staff at the same time, was just like a whirlwind in
Right.
between. My top 2 inches were completely mullered,
Yeah.
shall we say. And that's when I started to really struggle with anxiety, stress, depression, like all of the above. And I'd never, ever felt that low before. I'd never had these feelings of anxiety like cripple me
Yeah.
before. I didn't know what was going on. It was quite a frightening experience, but
Yeah.
I was finding that I was walking my dog in the evenings later and later. So it was dark. So I could go to the park near where I lived, let him off the lead, and then do a lap and allow this anxiety to exit my body. I'd spend like the whole walk just walking around on my own in the dark crying,
Okay. Okay.
because I was frightened about where I was going to find this money from, how I was going to secure more clients and quickly, how I was going to pay the staff, how I was going to pay my mortgage, how I was going to afford to put petrol in my car to go to the meeting to try and win more work. It was horrific, but I just didn't know what the answers were.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what this feeling, it was completely new. I'd never, ever experienced anything like it. And
Yeah.
it was quite scary. It was pretty scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand it. I understand it completely. The thing that I find unique about what you were doing to try and alleviate some of that was you weren't trying to bottle it up and shove it down further. You went out with your dog to the
Mm,
park, let him do his thing, and then you allowed yourself to process through that by
yeah,
releasing that emotion,
yeah,
which you're saying you don't understand it, you haven't felt it before, you don't know what it is, but you're allowing it to flow and to come out of you,
mm,
which is one of the key things about getting through anxiety and depression is being able to release in some way, whether it's you got back on the rugby field or any of that type of stuff where you're burning that energy off from the activity. But what you did, I believe, is more profound in the fact that you're allowing your body to move and you're allowing that emotion to come out in its natural grieving way, which is through tears
mm,
and through crying. That's the natural form of release for the body.
yeah,
A lot of individuals don't even pay attention to it. They just think it's a response because they're sad and they just cry. But that's the body's way of processing on its own is that release through tears and crying. So I find that profound that you were able to allow yourself to do that. And whether it was conscious or unconscious, you moved in a direction. And again, I'm going to tie this back to this intuition that you had early on about doing things because you instinctually just knew to do it.
yeah,
And I see that in this example of this story. You're doing something instinctively that just felt that's what you needed to do to get through it.
yeah,
And to start moving some of that out of you that is just completely internal
yeah,
struggle.
yeah. So I think I had bottled some of this up for a period of time
Yeah.
without actually realizing I was burying it deep,
Oh,
because I got myself into this sort of state of mind where I was like, oh, everyone feels stressed like this because it's just what running a business is.
yeah.
But actually, I was lying to myself really, because I knew deep down that this was more of a problem for me than I was allowing myself to believe.
Yeah.
And the deeper I got with it, the harder it was to admit that. But then, and I found myself finding that private sort of like time on my own to go out, walk the dog, away from my wife. I didn't want to burden my wife with it. So I still think I was burying this. I was hiding it. I wasn't burying it. I wasn't burying it. No, I was hiding it. So it was existing in plain sight. And then I was allowing myself to go and be on my own and just let the dog off the lead and just walk around this park, which I knew would take me 20 minutes. And that would give me long enough to like compose myself. I'd have like my heart would be racing as soon as I got there.
Yeah.
And I'd have sweating, and I just burst into tears as soon as I knew no one was around.
Yeah.
And I just walk it off. I just walk it off.
Yeah.
And then I knew I'd have enough time to compose myself before I got home, that I wouldn't like have to let on like, what was happening to me.
Yeah.
So it was quite deep. So I know what you're saying about you not burying it. I think I was, but like in a unique way to me, in a way. I mean, other
For
people
sure.
probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody has their unique experience of it, and nobody's quite the exact same all the way around. One of the things, and you brought this up, so I want to step into this 'cause I was thinking about it, is how is this affecting the home life scenario? Was your wife able to see something's just not quite right with Gareth? Something's going on.
100%.
Okay.
She, yeah, she clocked that I wasn't right. I was, at the time, I was struggling. Sarah was also going through a redundancy process, which was really stressful for her, which was a big part of the reason why I didn't want to burden her with my shit, because she
Okay.
had enough on her own plate. But she was acutely aware that I was in a bad place, because she said to me one day, and it was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, this, but she said, my daughter was probably wasn't even, she was probably just born. So she was 18 months maybe.
Yeah.
And she said, like Sarah said to me one day, she said, I never see you smile unless you're with Emily.
Mm,
She said, you've lost your smile. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. It really did. And I'd not noticed it myself. But
yeah.
Sarah was like acutely aware that my emotional state, I was not. And that was the night I went and did my usual sort of anxiety release program that I'd subconsciously written for myself.
Yeah.
But the thing that happened differently that night is I picked up the phone and I called Samaritans.
Yeah.
Now, Samaritans are a charity here in the UK. I don't know if you have them in the States, but they, it's exactly what they do. They're a phone line you can call and you can say, I'm struggling, and you'll speak to someone.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a lady that night that I don't know her name. I'll never meet her, but she told me, she just said, listen to me, which was like, nobody listens to you. That's the thing. Like sometimes you're trying to talk to people, but they don't listen, they don't hear you, or they hear the words, but they don't listen to the meaning behind them. But the lady on the phone that night said, you have to speak to your wife. And that's when I knew I, the biggest mistake I'd made was not speaking to her sooner.
Yeah.
again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to deal with this on my own.
Right.
But in doing that, I'd alienated myself further, and I knew I had to speak to Sarah. It was hard because I knew I would be burdening her with my shit.
Sure.
And, but yeah, it was an emotionally charged conversation. But in talking, the load lightened. It felt a lot lighter. I didn't feel like it was all on me anymore.
Yeah.
Sarah had obviously got my back,
Yeah.
and she said, "Okay, so what we're going to do about it?" And that was when I started to get. And I'm a natural problem solver.
Yeah.
There's a problem, I'll try and fix it,
Yeah.
and I don't even think sometimes. I'll
Right.
just fix it. However the solution needs to be made, I will seek to find it. In her just listening to me, hearing me properly, and then saying, "Okay, what we're going to do about it?" Then, and I had a plan, and then that was it. Then I started writing down a plan, and because ideas are ideas when they're in your head, they're not a plan until you write it down. So that's what I started to do, and it was tough, man, because I knew what I had to do, and I think I'd known this for 6 months, but I just buried it deep.
Yeah.
But I had to lose the staff, and that is when the Robin to my Batman had to go,
Yeah.
and that was when Dan, who'd been loyal to me for so long, unfortunately, I had to take his job away, which was fucking horrible. It
Right.
was horrible. I had to make his role redundant because I just couldn't afford to keep him.
Yeah.
And I knew it just sat terribly with me because he'd just bought a house, they'd just had a baby. Sarah said, and I said this to Sarah, and she said, "Yes, but Gareth, you've got a mortgage and you've got a baby, and I'm putting everyone ahead of myself. Everyone is before me."
Yeah.
And Sarah just said, "You have a baby, you have a mortgage, you have a life." And I knew that I had to stop putting everyone ahead of myself at that point because this business was my business, it wasn't theirs.
Yeah. For sure.
And there comes a point where you have to come first. And as a business owner, the sooner you realize that, the better. Because yes, you have to pay everyone before you pay yourself. Or do you?
Yeah.
There's a guy over here that I listened to speak a while ago, Nigel Botterill, his name is.
Yeah.
Nigel Botterill. You may have seen him. He's a character, but he's a very successful guy. And he pays himself before he pays his staff because once he's paid himself, he has to pay his staff. Because
Yeah.
the trap that people fall into is they pay the staff and they go, "Oh, I won't pay myself this month, or I'll wait a week."
Yeah.
What's actually no? You've been putting more hours in than anyone else. You should be rewarded for that. So that was a watershed moment for me. It was like, yeah, I do have a life that I need to fund.
Yeah.
And whilst the staff, the team, they can go and get another job because they'll move on and they'll get great jobs somewhere else. But I can't necessarily do that if I want to carry on being self-employed. It was a big moment, that, and I'm glad that Sarah said it when she did. So yeah, I did. I had to make those people redundant, which was horrible. I did not enjoy a single part of that process.
For sure.
But
You got
when,
too big of a heart, Gareth. You got too big of a heart, man. I can
but
tell.
what happened though, which made me feel instantly better about it, when I sat down with them and I told them both, because I only had the two at the time, Dan and a young girl called Eve, who was an apprentice,
Yeah.
who was brilliant as well. She's such a good designer. I sat down and I said, "Look, guys, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to give you a letter today. But your jobs are at risk. There is a redundancy process commencing today. I just haven't got the work coming in. I haven't got the money to fund this. So I need to look at ways of cutting costs. And the biggest overhead is you two."
Yeah.
So, and it tore my heart out saying those words.
Yeah.
But they both looked at each other and they said, "We thought this might be coming and we are looking for jobs." And that made me feel instant relief
Yeah.
because they'd already know. But then at the same time, it also made me feel fucking shit because I'd been like stressing myself to the point of mental health problems
Yeah.
to try and avoid this conversation whilst they're freaking searching for jobs. Like, and I don't hold it against them. Don't hold it against them because they've got to look out for it. And they were looking out for number one.
Yeah.
I should have been looking out for number one, and I wasn't. But yeah, but
Yeah. That's the key point of that story right there. Uh,
yeah,
they were already in the process of doing something, instinctively knowing, okay, this may not last. You're tore up about it internally. You're struggling. You don't want to deal with it. And then your wife encourages you to go ahead and deal with it, and you do. And the relief that comes out of it, as much as you're kicking yourself as well, saying, why did I wait so long? I think
yeah, yeah.
once once you're dealing with that and getting through that, are you doing anything else to try and support your mental health with that process moving forward?
I felt that I had very little control over my business at this point
Okay.
because I felt the client losses that we'd had through no fault of my own
Yeah.
were, yeah, they were hard to deal with. And I felt like I'm a control freak. I think we're all control freaks,
Sure.
but I do feel like I was struggling to control work. And I felt like I was having to do things and make decisions to save it rather than for it to flourish and prosper. A big outlet for me at this point was the gym. So through my younger days, I played a lot of sport. I was a rugby player. I played in a team where I was quite a big player for the position I was in. I've always been quite strong, and I got into the gym and I felt it supplemented my rugby. And when business got bigger, children came along, rugby took a backseat. I had an injury actually that ultimately stopped me playing, but I stopped training at the gym, and then work got more and more demanding on my time. I'd stopped training, but when I started to struggle again, I got back into the gym in a big way, and it really helped. It probably saved me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably saved me if I'm honest. I say that, but like the girls, like my wife and daughter, I was never going to do anything stupid, but it saved me from more serious issues and illness. I think having the gym there.
Yeah.
You know, my top deadlift was over 200 kilograms,
Oh, wow.
and I squatted 160 for reps. So I was a big, strong boy,
Yeah.
but I was suffering in plain sight. Like this anxiety and this depression was there.
Yeah.
It's just I was masking it with just like being consistent with my training, and it gave me like a sense of control and an anchor, and I really needed that. I really needed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was big that.
Yeah. That's a key thing that, again, not everybody realizes the benefits of an active process or anything that you can do to exert yourself. It just naturally starts to help the physiology of the mind and the body as well. And it doesn't come easy for everybody, me included. If I'm not if I'm not playing a sport, I find it very difficult to do something active because I'm doing it alone and
Mm.
it feels very boring for me. But it's absolutely something that can help change the mind and the body physiologically and allowing those endorphins to release and get moving. It's very helpful for many. And I'm glad that you were able to find that as something to assist you within that struggle.
Yeah, it was. I'm struggling to get it back now, if I'm honest. Like,
Sure.
COVID ultimately put paid to my training routines because obviously all the gyms closed,
Yeah.
and I was forced to train at home, which I didn't really enjoy. I quite liked the gym I was training at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a gym actually in the other side of this wall here.
Okay.
It's all set up there, but the similar to you because I work on my own
Right.
and I spend a lot of time in this room. And then if I'm training next door, I'm spending a lot of time in that room and this room. And then I don't know, I'm struggling to get back on it. I know that if I train 3 days straight, I'd be into it then.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is at the minute. I'm struggling to get the engine running again for it.
Yeah.
But
Ye-
at the minute, I'm in a good place. At the minute, I'm in a good place. Work's good,
Okay.
life's good. I don't feel like by not training, I don't feel like I'm shortchanging myself at the minute. I
Gotcha.
haven't trained for a long time, but what I do a lot of, do as much of as I can, is I walk a lot.
Okay.
So I've got, you laugh at this, but I've got a little WhatsApp community called the Glorious Mountaineers, and
Okay.
it's just basically a bunch of my mates that I've met through work down here, and we go away. We do I organise a tour every March, so we just did it 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
We'll go to a mountain range or a part of the countryside, and we'll just go for a walk. So it'll be Friday to Sunday. We have a hotel, breakfast, and then we sort our own food out, and we go for dinner in the evening, and we basically just switch off from life and work. Majority of people are self-employed, so it's good for the mental health for them.
Yeah.
But we do it once a year, and I'd love to make it more frequent, and I'm going to try to. But I love walking. I love just getting out, and I love climbing up high mountains. So the three peaks that we mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
that do you know what that challenge is?
Not specifically. I do not.
So the three highest mountains in the UK. So in Scotland, it's Ben Nevis,
Okay.
which is about 1,300 meters high, something like that. Then you've got Snowdon in Wales, which is just over 1,000 meters. Then you've got Scafell Pike, which is in England, which is about just under 1,000 meters. So the driving between the three is about 6 hours from Scotland to England to Wales. So you've got 6 hours and
Okay.
another 6 hours. And the idea is you drive up to Scotland, you do Ben Nevis, then you drive to Scafell Pike, you do that, then you drive to Snowdon, you do that, and you do it all in under 24 hours. So it's quite a challenge.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And we had like dedicated drivers and everything, but I've done that twice. I did it the first time in the 24, and the second time I did it, I had a back spasm, so I got injured. Basically, I couldn't finish it.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, but I love like climbing up high things. I've done ridge walks. I've done the one we did at the weekend a couple of weeks ago was a ridge walk. It's called the Dragon's Back, and it's formed like a formation of rocks that look like a dragon's back coming out of the earth,
Yeah.
which is cool. And there were 10 of us, 10 or 11 of us went up there and did that. And that's replacing the gym. It's just not often enough for me.
Yeah.
I want to do more of it, but I walk the dog every day, but it's not the same.
Exactly. I was about to ask you do you think that some of the struggle of going next door into the gym area of your studio, do you think it may be the fact that you're not around anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, the isolation is a problem.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in this room on my own. It's good in some ways because if I've got a project that if I really need to focus on a project, I know that I've got everything set up in this room, tailor made how I want it.
Yeah.
So when I'm working on projects, it's good.
Yeah.
The problem I have is when I'm quiet and I've not got as much work on, and then I run out of things to do. I'm then sat here twiddling my thumbs, and I'm like, oh, you get into your own head a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is that. Like working in isolation there's pros and cons, but that's why I do so much networking. So I've got a fortnightly group that I go to every Friday morning. Every other Friday morning, I go and see a group of business owners, and we talk about work, share referrals, share advice, and we do social stuff together every few months. Brilliant, because it breaks up that monotony of being like a sole operator in an office.
Yeah.
And then I'm also a director at the Chamber of Commerce, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So I have a monthly board meeting with those directors. There's 17 of us on the board. and I also run like a big chunk of the events that we run. So there's big networking opportunities for me there. So I've got one tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I'll be at a cafe in town. There's 50 business owners coming to that.
Wow.
So I'll be chatting to people all morning tomorrow, which is good. So I work hard to network for my own sanity as well as to draw up new business.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough, man. Working on your own is tough, but I also quite like it as well because if I need to focus, I know I can.
Yeah.
Uh, so do you find that?
I do. I do. And two, for me, creative spurts come at some of the on weirdest times. I can be sitting watching a show on television or on the computer screen at 9 o'clock at night, and I'll see something and it'll trigger an idea, and it's just, oh, I got to go work on this right now.
Yeah,
And I'm end up working on it 3 or 4 hours, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I got to go to bed. So it's,
my wife just slates me because I'll be like on my phone, I'll be making notes. She'll be like, "What are you doing?" I'll be like, "Oh, I'm just working." She's like, "What are you doing now?" And I was like, I've just had an idea, and if I don't write it down this minute, I will not remember it tomorrow."
yeah,
And she's like, "Okay, fair enough." She's really understanding, but she just gets frustrated because I'm constantly switched on to stuff as well,
yeah,
and I do like you, like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll wake up. I'll 40 now, so 41. So I can't go through the night without a piss. so I,
yeah,
so I go through a pee in the night and then I lie down, get back into bed, and I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I tried that typeface in that logo. And then you sit there and you think, why the fucking hell are you thinking about this now, you dickhead? Because I'm now going to be wide awake till 3 in the morning thinking
yeah,
about fonts. It just happens though, doesn't it? And then like you get to the office at 9 o'clock in the morning and you think, I can't be arsed with this shit today. Why couldn't I have been that inspired at 1 o'clock in the morning now? Do you get that?
exactly. It happens all the time. All the time. It's a constant roller coaster. It's just up and down. But I don't think for many years I thought that my creativity was a curse. I thought many a time, why couldn't I just be good at math and I could just go out and get a regular job? But I've had so many opportunities as a creative that the hindsight of it is, I don't know that I would change it at this point because it's been there. It's been exciting, fantastic resume pieces. Doesn't always amount to anything other than that a lot of times. But it's just, yeah, being an independent artist and working on your own, and you've experienced both sides of it. You have employees, and now you're back to yourself, I'm assuming, based on the conversation, that you're able to see the benefits and then also the down sides of it as well. But being an independent artist is it's freeing to an extent, but you also have the stress of when's the next thing coming,
Yeah,
or when is that genius idea going to kick in so that I can finish this project up that I've been dragging out for 2 weeks because I'm not clicking with it right away. So yeah, it's a different beast, a different animal. I think the community element of your story says a lot about you being able to keep moving on. And I think
yeah,
that's a key component of that the creative community needs to embrace more of is the community. Being willing to communicate with each other, share ideas, not be jealous of someone else's perceived level of success because the internet can do that for us.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I
Yeah.
think comparisons with people online really bad for us.
Yeah.
We're creatives and we have our own style. If you're comparing yourself to people online, it's not going to do you any favors. I think. Do you know what I problem with a lot of creatives is ownership. Like you need to own your situation. Like we talk about mental health like in life a lot more now than we ever used to. And in any industry, it's important that we are open and honest about our mental health and how we're feeling. And if we're struggling with stuff, we need to talk about it. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm living embodiment of that. What I think is the problem now, though, is we talk about mental health. Yeah. What next? What next? And the issue, I think, with a lot of people, and this is maybe a bit of a sweeping generalization of creative people, there, is I see a lot of victim syndrome kicking in with people. And the problem is that they're quite willing to talk about, oh, I'm feeling low and oh, I'm anxious and oh, I'm stressed and oh, I'm depressed, blah, blah, blah. Great. You're talking about it. But what are you going to do about it? If you don't own your situation, it won't fucking change. Talking about it is one thing, but you then need to learn to accept that this is the situation and you need to own it and you need to deal with it. Now, that might be easier said than done in some situations. And if people have medical issues, obviously, I'm a graphic designer, not a doctor.
Right.
So please don't shoot me for that. But I do think we need to, as a community, get past this victim syndrome. Like, yes, life is tough, careers are tough, creative is tough.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, talk about it, but then deal with it.
Right.
I,
Yeah.
I do think that is a thing that needs to be. I might be unpopular that, but
Here's the thing, Gareth. Inaction results in nothing.
yeah, I agree.
Inaction literally results in nothing.
Yeah,
So you're spot on.
I just think, yeah, inaction is that if you don't take ownership of your situation, that's it. What's that phrase? If you keep doing the same thing, you'll always get what you always had.
Yeah.
So you keep talking about how shit life is and how mental health is poor. It will continue to be like that until you change something. Talking about is part the start of the acceptance.
Yeah.
What you need to do is find the root cause of that and make changes there. You might need to seek support in doing that. Part one is talking about it. You need to start part two.
Exactly. I think that's a beautiful point for us to close this out today. And I always want to remind the audience to listen to your heart and be kind to your mind.
Absolutely.